The Los Angeles Sparks made a front office change on July 12, dismissing general manager Reagan Pebbly after 2.5 seasons in charge.
And built a team to play around her. They've spent 2 off seasons building a team to play without Caitlin Clark. It's clear as day. It's very simple, and I think the writing is pretty much already on the wall. At the end of the season, Kelsey Mitchell contract is up. Caitlin Clark is up for the Epic, whatever. The Indiana Fever are going to be forced to pick a direction. They're either going to choose Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White, or they are going to choose Caitlin Clark. And I include Stephanie White in that because Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, philosophically, they just don't see basketball from the same lens. It's that simple. I don't believe that they hate each other off the floor. I just don't think that on the floor, it's a good mix. I think they just see the game through 2 different lenses. And we have been yearning and calling for Stephanie White to actually stand up for, represent, and be front and center for Caitlin Clark.
And you best believe these owners are going to be scouring the market for who can reel in the big fish, the biggest fish of them all, Caitlin Clark. Take a look here. This is crazy. It is going down, y'all. It's going down like Young Jock. I keep trying to tell you. Sparks agreed to part ways with general manager Reagan Pebbly. The LA Sparks have agreed to part ways with general manager effective today.
The team is 10-11, sitting 9th in the WNBA standings and on pace to miss the playoffs for a 5th consecutive year, the longest active postseason drought in the league. Interim duties will be split between assistant general managers Zach Knowlton and Nate Nielsen. In a statement, Sparks Governor Eric Holloman thanked Pebbly for her leadership and her work on the roster and player experience, and wished her well in her next chapter. Pebbly took over the Sparks front office in January 2024. Her first season produced an 8-32 record, the worst in franchise history. Since then, the team has added Kelsey Plum and Nneka Ogwumike, hired Lynn Roberts, a college coach with no prior WNBA experience, and made a series of roster bets that never fully paid off. Plum has missed significant time with a leg injury this year, limited to 12 games. The defense has been among the worst in the league. According to The Athletic, Pebbly had reportedly been in contact with other teams before her dismissal, though the substance of those conversations is unclear. Her exit comes about 3 weeks before the WNBA trade deadline on August 2. That is the factual core of the Sparks story. It has nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. But online, the 2 narratives have been merging for weeks, and understanding why requires going back to late May, when a very different controversy started building in Indiana. On May 30, the Fever lost 184 to the Portland Fire. During that game, a clip surfaced showing Clark in a heated exchange with head coach Stephanie White on the bench. The clip spread quickly, and the speculation that followed was almost immediate. The next day, commentator Skip Bayless posted a claim that White was being fired and would be replaced by Iowa head coach Jan Jensen, Clark's former college coach. That report was false. Days later, Fever Beat reporter Scott Agnes revealed that the team had revoked his media credentials, a move that came after his reporting on Clark's injury status. Around the same time, former sports commentator Jason Whitlock posted that the Fever were planning to trade Clark to the Los Angeles Sparks, adding a claim that UCLA coach Corey Close would take over as the Sparks' head coach. Michael Thompson, the father of NBA player Klay Thompson, posted a similar claim on social media, telling the Sparks to go get her. None of this came from credible sourced reporting. Ryan Glasspiegel of Front Office Sports said at the time that he would be stunned if the Fever traded Clark, tying any such move purely to speculation about ticket sales rather than anything substantiated. No WNBA reporter with a track record of accurate sourcing confirmed any part of the trade rumor. Clark addressed it directly before Indiana's game against the New York Liberty, telling reporters she did not understand why the story kept resurfacing and that the team's internal conversations were about improving, not about the noise surrounding them. She said the Fever were in a good place. Aaliyah Boston, asked separately about how Clark was carrying herself under that level of scrutiny, said Clark handled the constant attention well despite the volume of commentary directed at the team. The Fever's front office was equally direct, with general manager Amber Cox calling the trade speculation a ridiculous narrative. The injury threads that ran alongside this speculation are also verifiable and worth laying out clearly because they are part of what's fueled ongoing frustration among fans. Clark's back soreness began on June 24th against Phoenix. She was held out of the July 5 game against Las Vegas to rest. She returned on July 8 against the Sparks under a minute's restriction, playing 16 minutes and finishing with 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. She later said the shortened rotation disrupted her rhythm on the floor. She then sat out the following game, a win over Phoenix on July 9. None of this is disputed. It is documented by the team itself and reported consistently across outlets covering the Fever. So when the Sparks fired Pebbly on July 12, 4 days after Clark had played a restricted 16 minutes against that same Los Angeles team, the timing was enough for parts of the internet to treat the two stories as connected. But nothing in the reporting around Pebbly's dismissal references Clark, the Fever, or any player movement. The Sparks' stated reasoning was entirely about their own record, their own roster construction under Pebbly, and their own 5-year playoff drought. Treating her firing as evidence of a Clark-driven power shift requires ignoring what the Sparks organization actually said and what actually happened on the court that led to the decision. What is real and what the frustration among fans is actually rooted in has less to do with any trade and more to do with a pattern of friction inside the Fever organization that predates any of this. The credential revocation involving Scott Agness raised real questions about how transparent the team has been with its own beat reporters, particularly around injury reporting. The bench exchange between Clark and White during the Portland loss, however brief, was real, and it happened in front of cameras. The minutes restriction placed on Clark upon her return and her own comments that it disrupted her rhythm reflect a coaching decision that some fans have read as overly cautious given how much of the team's offensive identity runs through her. None of these things, on their own, prove a trade is coming. But together, they explain why a fabricated report from a commentator with no inside sourcing found an audience willing to believe it. It's also worth being precise about what Clark herself has said, because her own words cut directly against the panic narrative that spread online. She did not frame her relationship with White as broken. She did not describe the locker room as hostile. She described a team focused on getting better and expressed frustration not with her coach or her front office, but with the volume of speculation drowning out that message. That doesn't erase the legitimate criticisms fans have raised about rotation decisions or front office communication. It does mean that the loudest version of this story, the one claiming Indiana was actively shopping its franchise player to a rebuilding Los Angeles team, was never substantiated by anyone with real access to the organization. The Sparks, for their part, now enter the final stretch before the trade deadline without a permanent general manager, led on an interim basis by two assistants while ownership figures out its next move. Their roster questions are their own. What to do with Plum and Ogwumike, both unrestricted free agents after this season, and how to build around Cameron Brink, still just 24 years old. And outside of the state of the actual product Pebbly left behind, one of the few long-term assets left on the roster, whoever takes over that front office permanently inherits a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2020. With limited draft capital and salary commitments extending well into 2027 for role players who haven't moved the needle. None of that changes what's happening in Indiana. The Fever's issues, the ones fans have genuine standing to raise, are about accountability within their own building. They involve how the coaching staff manages Clark's health and workload against her offensive impact when she's on the floor. They involve how the front office handles media access and injury disclosure, particularly after the Agness situation raised real transparency questions. They involve whether White's rotation patterns during high-leverage stretches reflect a system built around Clark's strengths or one working against them. Those are legitimate points of scrutiny, grounded in things that actually happened this season, from the Alyssa Thomas flagrant foul incident to the back injury timeline to the credential dispute. They don't require inventing a Los Angeles trade conspiracy to be worth examining. What the past several weeks actually show is two separate organizations dealing with two separate sets of problems. The Sparks made a front office change because their team has underperformed relative to investment for 5 straight years, and ownership ran out of patience with the direction Pebbly had set. The Fever are dealing with a set of internal tensions, real ones, that have nothing to do with a trade and everything to do with how a franchise manages its most valuable asset while trying to build a roster and a coaching system capable of winning around her. Clark said as much herself, directly on camera when she was asked. The rest was noise generated by people with large platforms and no actual sourcing, amplified because a coincidence in timing made it feel plausible. For a fan base that has watched credential disputes, injury reporting inconsistencies, and questionable in-game decisions pile up this season, it's understandable that a Los Angeles front office shakeup would read as one more data point in a larger story about a franchise mismanaging its biggest star. But the actual record doesn't support that read. The Sparks' decision was about the Sparks. The Fever's problems are about the Fever. Conflating the two doesn't make either story true. It just makes the noise louder, at the expense of the parts of this that are actually worth holding the organization accountable for. The officiating grievance that has followed the Fever for weeks adds another verified layer to this. On June 24, during a 111-109 win over the Phoenix Mercury, Clark was on the ground in a scramble for the ball when Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas made contact with her fist to Clark's throat while getting up. No foul was called in real time. Clark left the game in the third quarter with the back issue that would keep recurring through the following weeks, finishing with 19 points and 8 assists in 20 minutes. Stephanie White called the no call unacceptable after the game, saying the team had spent the offseason pushing the league for more consistent officiating. The following day, the WNBA's league office reviewed the play, upgraded it to a flagrant foul 2 for what it described as a non-basketball act, fined Thomas $1,000, and suspended her for 1 game. Clark did not address the incident publicly until that Friday when she opened a 5-minute statement by confirming she agreed it should have been called a flagrant foul in real time and said the league's officiating needed to improve. She also said the play wasn't debatable and could be reviewed on video without much interpretation required. At the same time, she pushed back on the idea that the reaction to the play had become larger than the game itself, saying the ongoing controversy was a disservice to her team, to Phoenix, and to other players in the league. She also addressed the harassment directed at people on both sides in the aftermath, saying none of it was acceptable. Thomas, for her part, said afterward that she and her family had received threats and been targeted with racial slurs, and said the league needed to do more to protect players from that kind of response, not just from on-court contact. This is the incident that fans citing a hostile environment around the Fever are most often pointing to, and it holds up under scrutiny in a way the Sparks trade theory doesn't. The no call was real. The league's own review confirmed it warranted a flagrant foul and a suspension. White's criticism of the officiating was on the record, and consistent with complaints the coaching staff had been raising since the offseason. And the fallout, including threats directed at a player who was ultimately suspended for the play, reflects a genuinely toxic layer of the discourse around this team that has nothing to do with fabricated trade rumors and everything to do with how physical play against Clark has been officiated and how both fan bases have responded when the league does or doesn't act. Taken together with the credential dispute and the minutes restriction, this is where the actual accountability conversation belongs. Not on an invented boardroom conspiracy in Los Angeles, but on whether the league is calling games consistently enough to protect its players, whether the Fever's own coaching decisions are protecting Clark's health without undermining her effectiveness, and whether the organization is being transparent enough with the reporters covering it. Those are the questions with real answers on the record. The trade rumor never had one.